Hello, everyone. I'm Dean Kelley with the Georgia Transparency Coalition. We're here today with Dalton Mayor David Pennington. He ran for governor against Nathan Dale back in 2014, and he was the mayor of Dalton from 08 to 14, and he had to resign to run for governor. Get my words mixed up today. And he has ran for mayor, got reelected, and he's currently the mayor of Dalton again. So thanks for meeting with us today.
You're glad to, Dean.
Just want to talk to you about some issues here locally in our region and across the state and get your perspective on things. We interviewed the mayor of Ringo, and I want to interview some local mayors, just get their perspective on things. But as we get started, just give me your assessment of the coronavirus and our economy, and where do you think we need to go from here?
Well, I think Rahm Emanuel said it a while back when Obama was first elected. He said, "Never waste a good crisis."
Yeah.
And it looks like our state government and our federal government has not wasted this good crisis. They seem to have taken completely over the economy.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to, like I said, they're taking advantage of it and strong arm tactics on some folks as far as, actually taking our liberties away if you get right down to it on some levels. Do you think that they'll allow us to move our economies forward at the end of the month, or how do you think they're going to?
I hope so. I don't understand why the governor lengthened it until May 1st in a lot of areas of Georgia. This is a good area up here. The 7-county area, we've only had 100 cases and 8 deaths. So I don't understand why we're still on the shutdown up here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping what the president does is leave it up to the governors to make the decisions and maybe the mayors and the county commissioners in their local communities.
I hope the governor does what he did to begin with, is leave it up to the mayors, and then he took it over a week ago and is now refusing to allow us to open them back up again until May 1st.
Yeah. And of course, in the meantime, you got people that are suffering financially.
Yes, we've got entire swaths of our business sector now, particularly restaurants and small shops. A lot of them will never come back into business again.
Well, that's right. And I know you've always been a big advocate of small business anyway. And a lot of these small businesses, because of this, won't be able to reopen. So how many lives is that going to impact, because they don't have the cash flow to sustain this as long as they have? So,
and it didn't make any sense to me why we left Home Depot, Lowe's open. Not that I thought we should close those, but we shut down all the small shops.
Yeah.
I explained to somebody, I said the reason being is one has political power, the other one doesn't.
Well, like a lot of people, while we've been shut down, is a lot of people been catching up on work around their homes. That's what I've been doing. And every time I go to Lowe's and Home Depot, they're packed.
Yep, they are.
And because they're one of the few places that are open.
Yep.
So people are taking advantage of it. But still, it's kind of laughable because businesses are being shut down because of physical contact and social distancing. And then, of course, these places are seen as essential businesses, so they remain open. But
what's more essential than eating?
Exactly.
And the restaurants had so few people in it anyway during this thing, whatever. They could have easily social distanced in that. And as I said, this 7-county area up here almost had 100 cases.
Yeah, I think we've had 10 in Walker County, if I remember right.
We've had 29 in Whitfield, I think like 4 in, not 10 deaths, 10 cases.
Yeah, 10 cases. Yeah.
Okay, 4, I think 4 in Dade County. Catoosa County has like 12. I mean, the flu is far worse than this.
Exactly. And of course, when you look at the maps, it's all concentrated in big cities anyway. Yes. It's all concentrated in Atlanta.
Yes.
So policies that might be appropriate for Atlanta and the Atlanta area are certainly not appropriate up here in Northwest Georgia. So I'm hoping the governor will give some flexibility to the county commissioners and the mayors to make those decisions. And I'm hoping the president will let the governors move forward. So I guess we'll see what happens there. But let's move on to Georgia. What are the major issues that you see in Georgia right now?
Now Georgia's a budget crisis.
Yeah,
exactly what's going to happen with this, because a large part of the revenues come in April and May, and now that tax filing, because we follow the federal income tax rules, since it's been lengthened to July 15th, I think it is, Georgia's going to be in, I think, a budget crisis. This is some of the things you were saying they're discussing on the budget this year before they broke. You're going to see a lot of that budget's going to be completely changed.
Yeah. Of course, you and I have talked before, and you've been at our meetings before, and one of the big issues that you've talked about in the past is this Hollywood tax credit. You mind explaining that so folks have a good understanding of how that works and how that's not really beneficial to anybody except Hollywood?
Yeah, people need to understand it's a tax credit, not a tax abatement.
Yeah.
In other words, we're not abating the taxes that Hollywood would have paid. we're giving an actual tax credit.
Mhm.
So we're giving them up to 30% of whatever they spend on a movie, making a movie supposedly in Georgia. And that tax credit is transferable, so it can be sold for 90 cents on the dollar.
Mhm.
So in effect, what we're doing is investing in anywhere from 25 to 30% of a movie being made in Georgia. Well, we had no audit trail on that to begin with. They finally did the first audit this year because a lot of people started asking questions about it. And it turned out they were putting a lot of expenses in there that weren't even derived from Georgia. Over half the payroll has gone to Hollywood. And most of the payroll that's left in Georgia, and there was a good article in the Dalton paper, it's probably across the state, I think it's a syndicated column, but in the Dalton paper last week that showed that these Hollywood jobs that we have here are very temporary, low paid. They were talking about that they got laid off immediately when the coronavirus thing hit, and now they're trying to help each other because they have no long-term jobs with those things.
Yeah, the temporary jobs to start with. Who do you know who the main pushers of that bill was to start with in the Senate and House?
When you say the main pushers originally,
Yeah.
well, I think obviously Sonny Perdue was the governor, so he was the one that was behind it to begin with. And whoever, I guess, from the economic development, I'm not sure who's on the economic development committee for the House and Senate.
Okay. Well, speaking of development authorities, that's a big debate that we're having up.
Well, let's go back though to the movie tax credit.
Okay.
That thing now is costing Georgia taxpayers up to $800 million a year.
Wow.
They have another $1.5 billion sitting that have not been used yet that can be used over the next few years. It shows you the impact. That's larger than public safety, different areas of Georgia budget that are much more important than the movie tax credit is.
Yeah, and all that money is going to California. Hollywood. It's not staying here in Georgia, which is what it should. I mean, I would think we've been what the bill was originally should have been written for was to help create jobs and help small businesses in Georgia that might benefit from it or trickle down to it.
If you're going to give somebody that size tax credit, it better be somebody that puts a lot of brick and mortar in Georgia with permanent jobs.
Yeah, and not going to Hollywood. And like I said, this was done to the Development Authority. That's a big issue that's taking place that comes up pretty much every election now, is the benefit of these development authorities. Are we really getting a big enough bang for the buck that we're using? Of course, I know you've always been a big advocate on small business. And of course, they say that Georgia is rated #1 as state for business. Of course, I guess that depends on who you talk to.
Well, first of all, the only people they talk to with that is it's a magazine that rates us the #1 state in America to do business. And that is what I call the Crony Capitalist magazine. Mm-hmm. It's one of developers that are looking for tax breaks in different states.
Yeah.
That's the only place that's ever said we're the #1 place in America to do business.
Well, for these development authorities go, of course, to me, that's the government getting involved in picking the winners and the losers in the economy. And generally, it just benefits those who have the biggest wallet and can have the most influence down there at capital or in your local communities. What's your overall impression of the development authorities? Should we continue with them the way they are? Should they be adjusted and changed, or should we just eliminate them?
The #1 reason people give for doing it because everybody else is doing it, so we have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, you remember as a child when your mother would say, Johnny jumped off the bridge, would you jump off the bridge too? Well, that's exactly what all states are doing and all counties are doing when they do this. You're just giving tax money, other hard-earned tax money from existing businesses in a county to somebody coming from outside the county. And now they can write off these things so quickly. You'll attract a business today, then 5 years from now, when somebody gives them a better deal, they move on.
Yeah, and I think that's happened up in Walker County, where at the end of the tax credit, they move on to the next. They change their location and take advantage of the tax credit in the new state or the new county that they move into.
And somebody's got to pay for the schools, the fire departments, the police departments, and all that. Why do they not have to pay for them?
Yeah, exactly. Well, what are your strategies if you want to attract business? What do you think are the strategies for a local community to do that? Would it be to invest in infrastructure, make sure you got good roads, good bridges, good school systems, things
good
like
utilities, everything they're really looking for? Most of those people will tell you they're going to go where they think is best for them anyway. Mm-hmm. Now, they'll take the tax credit and they'll also negotiate hard for that tax credit, but they've already pretty well had their mind made up where they're going before they even do it.
Yeah. Of course, now a lot of them also, they want to have a with these industrial parks, for example. They want to have everything already prepared for them, just like Walker County back with the previous administration invested over $20 million to establish an industrial park, and I think we have one business that's in there.
Well, people use that excuse, pad ready and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And how come when we attracted Kia, they went out and I forget how many parcels of land they had to acquire and to get ready for Kia in a very quick amount of time.
Yeah.
They didn't have that existing site down there.
Yeah, that's my thinking. So, so it just seems like there's an awful lot of taxpayer money invested on the front end for what you're hoping will happen. May never happen. I know, like I said, in Walker County, B.B. Haskell used to say, I still think it's the right decision, even though we only have one business that's in that industrial park. Well, we've got two industrial parks, and it's still sitting there pretty empty.
If I remember correctly, in Walker County, they actually borrowed the money to acquire the industrial parks. And that made it even worse.
Yeah, made it even worse.
We did the same thing here with the Carbondale. We issued bonds to acquire that. Now we've got two companies in there. The last company that they attracted got 10 years, 100% tax abatements. For the next 5 years, 50% tax abatements, and gave them the land.
Yeah, that's my phone. Just make sure I get that cut off.
That's in a community with the carpet industry.
Yeah.
The carpet industry never got that.
Right. Well, we're moving on. Let's talk about Dalton. What's the big issues in Dalton right now? What's your plans for moving forward in Dalton? What's the big issues?
Well, right now, obviously, to get past this COVID crisis, whatever, because we've only had 29 cases in Winfield County, and most of our small businesses are shut down, particularly all our restaurants, so we need to get back running again. But one of the things is, one of the big things was redevelopment of our two most important corridors, Walnut Avenue and Rocky Face Interchange, and West Walnut Avenue and Market Street. You can look down there and see how many older buildings, vacant land, things like that are out there. And then on Rocky Face, we still have a lot of vacant land out there, and the North Bypass has a lot of vacant land. And one of the things that we've done is we've contracted with a group called the GMC Group out of Atlanta to help us to start that redevelopment process.
Oh, fantastic.
It should lead to the largest commercial redevelopment in Dalton history.
Oh, wow. So what's the industry like in Dalton? Of course, I know we had a recession. Of course, it's been several years back. And of course, Trump's got the economy, Trump rocking again a little bit. And of course, the coronavirus has knocked that into the dirt. Do you feel like that Dalton is going to be able to make a comeback after things get cranked up again? Or
we should, because we still have the carpet industry. The carpet industry really has never really come back from the last recession. It's bounced around a pretty low level, but it's still a huge industry for a community our size. So we're very, very fortunate to have it. It pays most of our bills going forward, and will for the next 2 decades probably at least.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up here, just I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the biggest issues facing Georgia right now, and the biggest issues that are facing our nation as we move forward?
Number one is getting past, I hope this so-called fix for the coronavirus doesn't cause a depression. Actually, it's going to cause a serious recession. That's how bad the depression is going to be. But hopefully this time we won't waste an opportunity. We need to look at how we fund our schools, how we do everything in this state now that we've shut everything down. And let's just bring back the things that we really need.
Yeah, just what we really need. And as Thomas Jefferson said, the government governs least, the government's best.
Yeah, if you just look at our schools, which is our largest area of expenditure, we still fund it the same way we have for the last 100 years. Basically, seats, student seats and things like that. A lot of this technology now that we have, we may find out we can continue to use some of this to save a lot of money.
Yeah. And of course, with the technology the way it is, a lot of students could basically do school from home if they had parents that supervise them.
Well, right now we've been wasting money in Georgia on kids that do dual enrollment. We pay for the full college for them, still pay for them to be in a school they're not in high school, but Georgia's been paying for both. Now they're looking at changing that this time, and I'm hoping they're going to. That was another thing that Nathan Deal did that really harmed the state.
Yeah. Well, that's it for now. We've been sitting here with David Pennington. Hopefully we'll hear from him in the future, and we'll visit with him soon, and others. Thank you so much.